Going through the throes at the moment of updating the bed headlights in the Ultimate Camper. These are the original ones. They got little halogen light bulbs, cigarette lighter, male end at the end. At the bed head there's a female cigarette lighter adapter. We've gone through that, that's the boss and I, have gone from this to putting a double USB point in there, just into the cigarette lighter adapter, using one of the USBs for a LED light, which we sourced from the States, and using the second USB as a charging point. The more modern Ultimates have a fixed bed headlight, and when you go to Ultimate it doesn't come as a kit per se. They send you these Nava bits and pieces, so that's a flush mount LED light, flush mount USB point, which looks like this when they're taken out of the packet, so I've got one for each side. Then they send us these brackets, clamps for the bow, a couple of bolts, a couple of nuts and some flat washers, and no instructions. So at the moment I'm just waiting for a phone call back from Graham at Ultimate, just to talk me through about assembling these, and then I'll bring that to you. Spoke to Ultimate, there's actually a left and right bed headlight assembly. Not so much worried about these brackets, but it's the hollowed out brackets, these ones here. I've got two of one type, so they're going to send up another one. Something that's relevant to everybody. Cost $242.70 to be delivered to me. Express post packet, 20 bucks. I went through the list and got everything up to there. Then it said metal thread panhead M20 of, I think I actually got 30. I think metal thread stainless Phillips, didn't get those. Cable 3mm 10 amp brown white 6 meters, didn't get that. Nylock nuts I got. So you just need to make sure you check out the picking slip. These are the old original female cigarette light adapter for the halogen lights. As I mentioned previously, we just stuck a double USB in there with a LED light. I'll show you that shortly because that's here in the camper. Showing you the halogen lights that originally came with this. These are the LED lights that I ordered from the States, little USB thing. There's actually 3 adjustments on the light, so that's pretty good I reckon, but anyhow the boss didn't want these, so we've got what we've got. I've already shown you what was in the kits, so I've just taken them out of the kits. I've got to take these wires off first so I can remember which way they go. I'm going to put the camera down and see if we can catch this a bit. .11/32 drill bit. These holes haven't been drilled all the way through, well they have been, but they're like as if they're for a self tapper. Two of the 30mm bolts, panhead bolts. With nylock washers, don't need the flat washers. Those 2 holes that I just drilled out, center holes for the wiring for the light. Orientation, that hole down at the bottom, light to the top. Swap the drill out for a Phillips head bit. The 11/32 hole is a tight fit. Make sure you don't crush the wiring. Put some heat shrink on that. USB point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder these little lugs up, and I need to cut them off. Give you a close look, you can see the little solder on there. Just going to cut them in half, just file it, make it nice and smooth. Then I'm going to push it back in. I'm going to solder the other side now. Side cutters. So you can see they're been cut down a fair bit. I'm going to go away and file these now. Be back shortly. File down. So I'm just going to push them back in now. Okay, I've pushed them flush, as flush as I can. Now I'm going to solder the light wires to it, remembering which arm is positive and negative. Positive is closest to that little white element there, so it'll be this terminal here. Wire soldered in, positive, negative, positive this side. Now this little transformer will actually fit through the hole. Before I do that, in these USB things, you'll see there's a couple of little locating lugs. There's actually 3 of them. There's 2 that actually crush up. So what I'm going to do is file, clean up the hole, and there's actually a little bit of a cut out there, and I'm actually going to file that up a little bit more. I filed that out and I've cleaned up as best I can. This is going to be the visible side. There's actually a backing plate that goes onto this. I haven't got it yet. It's being posted to me hopefully. These are machined, so they're a little bit rough around the edges. I usually get a sharp Stanley knife just on an angle and miter them. That usually takes all the burrs off. Now the USB is a very tight fit. I'll show you what I do. Now I'm going to make sure the orientation of the wires is facing up, because the housing goes on the back of here. There'll be a cutout on this side, and I want the wires to go that way. Because if I had the wires orientated the other way, like that, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get it around. Now the USB will be vertical in these. So I line it up with those 2 little cutouts as best I can. Push it in as far as I can, and then I just give it some weight, and that's it. Flush. The 2 nylock nuts, they actually secure the backing plate on it, so I'll just leave them here for the time being until I get the new backing plate. There's like a G clamp that clamps around your bow shackle on your bed head, and it clamps up through here with a 30mm bolt. I've found on my old Ultimate that the bow is a little bit bigger than probably the newer ones, and that G clamp, that clamp is fairly well spread, so I've actually gone up in length to a bolt that's probably about 35mm long, and I found that installing this with this part of the assembly without the backing plate on first is going to be a bunch helpful. Another trick to be aware of is, I mean, you can mount these up either side of this block, it's universal, but the bed head lights mount up so that if we're looking at the bed head this way, this is the right hand one, it has to mount up on the inside of the bow, not on the side, so inside the bow. So I need to make sure that hole's there. So you just need to be aware of the orientation of this particular part and this hole for your clamping. Now the USB points have a transformer because they drop down to about 5 or 6 volts. So unfortunately the LED light can't solder straight into that power point either. Not going to work. So what's going to happen is the LED light wiring is going to have to be spliced in down here where we splice in the power supply from the camper. What I've done is, or what I'm going to do is, The USB wiring and the light wiring are the same length or thereabouts. So I'm going to cut a bit off. Well, that's as far as I can go at the moment. You can see the wires are about the same length. The panhead screw that I'm using in this clamp, as I mentioned previously, is longer than the standard one. And like measuring from the underside of the panhead to the end of the thread is 30mm. And I think I've already mentioned that I'll be using 3 flat washers as well. And I'll tell you why. When this goes on the bow clamp, it spreads out, so it's like that when it's fitted. And it's just a bugger to get that screw into the nut on the back of there, nice and square. That's the first problem. You're going to need to make sure that that's nice and square. And then when you do it up, you need to make sure that the screw doesn't come through the other side. That's that little clamp installed. You see there's quite a large gap there, and it clamps up this fitting, so you see there's quite a bit of a gap there. It'll pull up some on the screw because it's a bit flexible. Alright, there you can see I've got the screw partially in. See the screw partially in there, 3 flat washers, and you can see the clamp on the other side's pushed out at an awkward angle. Hopefully you can see that anyhow. So I need 2 hands in here, so I'm going to try and line up this side of the G-clamp so it's square with that screw, so I can actually get the nut started. Right here, so I've managed to get that panhead screw started up on this nut, so I've got to get rid of that little gap on the inside there, and hopefully the screw won't pop around there. That's that fitted off. I've made sure it's the height that I want it to be at, high enough above the bedding and stuff that goes in. But, still can move it just, and I don't know if you can see, there's probably about half a thread poking through there, but I'm not too worried about that. The electrical cables, they'll come through the back and down the bow, and as I mentioned previously, I'll splice these, and I'll need to just cut that off as a black and red wire there, splice them in, and I'll put some heat shrink on them as well. Chiseled out to that side. We'll actually cut down the side first with the hacksaw, then I chiseled the rest out, so I've cleaned it up. Go to install now. Just holding the backing plate on, you can see the wires coming out the back there, and those 2 bolts which hold on the light. Just got to get the nylox on that and make sure they're nice and tight. That's it finished. Obviously not the best job because we've got this cut out this side as well, so it's lost a bit of rigidity, but it's going to protect the wiring, which is the important part for the moment. Okay, I finished the lights. The only thing I haven't done is put some split tube around the wiring from down here up. I've used some double-sided adhesive, transformer on that side. Little clips that came with the light, I just used some Gorilla Glue, stuck it to the bow light, and the other side I've glued the transformer there. Again, I've got a split tube up there, glue to the bow.